Infrastructure-based development. Infrastructure-based economic development, also called infrastructure-driven development, combines key policy characteristics inherited from the Rooseveltian, progressivist tradition and Neo-Keynesian economics in the United States, France's Gaullist and Neo-Colbertist centralized economic planning, Scandinavian social democracy as well as Singaporean. While the benefits of infrastructure-based development can be debated, the analysis of U.S. economic history shows that at least under some scenarios, infrastructure-based investment contributes to economic growth, both nationally and locally, and can be profitable, as measured by higher rates of return. The benefits of infrastructure investment are shown both for old-style economies, ports, highways, railroads, as well as for the new age high-speed rail, airports, telecommunications, internet. Aschar's model and other academic approaches. The China way, an alternative development path. Some European and Asian economists suggest that infrastructure-savvy economies such as Norway, Singapore, and China have partially rejected the underlying neoclassical financial orthodoxy that used to characterize the Washington Consensus and initiated instead a pragmatist development path of their own based. Research conducted by the World Pensions Council WPC suggests that while China invested roughly 9% of its GDP in infrastructure in the 1990s and 2000s, most Western and non-Asian emerging economies invested only 2% to 4% of their GDP in infrastructure assets. This considerable investment gap allowed the Chinese economy to grow at near optimal conditions, while many South American, South Asian, and African economies suffered from various development bottlenecks, poor transportation networks, aging power grids, inadequate school facilities, among other issues. Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and One Belt, One Road. The Beijing-based Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, IAB, established in July 2015, and corollary One Belt, One Road Chinese-led initiative demonstrate the PRC government's capacity to garner the financial and political resources needed to export their economic development model, notably by persuading neighboring Asian nations to join IAB's founding members. Recent developments in North America and the EU, 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 the EU. Kazakhstan's Infrastructure Development Program. The Nurli-Joll Plan, or New Economic Policy, announced on 11 November 2014 during Kazakhstan President's State of the Nation address, introduced a number of measures aimed at developing countries' infrastructure in order to sustain economic growth. The Nurli-Joll program applies to such sectors of infrastructure as transport and logistic, tourism, housing and communal services, education, support of export, agriculture, etc. Trump's America First Infrastructure Plan. Reliance on infrastructure as an asset class for private investors. Donald Trump's policies aim at harnessing private capital to leverage government spending on infrastructure at federal, state, and local level. This approach relies on the notion of infrastructure as an asset class for institutional investors, which was initially developed in Northern Europe, Canada, and Australia. Blackstone Saudi Arabia Infrastructure Fund. On May 20, 2017, during President Donald Trump's official state visit to Saudi Arabia, he signed a $110 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates announced they would donate a combined $1 million to a World Bank Fund for Women Entrepreneurs, a project inspired by Ivanka Trump. Blackstone's CEO is Stephen Schwarzman, leads Trump's Business Council, advising him on policy issues ranging from trade to infrastructure, unveiled a $40 billion fund which will primarily invest in infrastructure in the United States. Blackstone, which has $360 billion in assets, is entering into infrastructure projects in which large investment. Biden's infrastructure bill. Unprecedented public funding. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, is a United States federal statute enacted by the 117th United States Congress and signed into law by President Joe Biden on November 15, 2021. It includes approximately $1.02 trillion in new spending, unlocking unprecedented funding for transportation, broadband, and utilities across the United States. Geoeconomic considerations. Chinese state media, which had largely ignored the preceding policy debates on Capitol Hill, mocked the newly passed infrastructure bill as a feeble imitation of their nation's accomplishments. The Global Times, a newspaper produced by the ruling Chinese Communist Party, criticized the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in an acerbic editorial. Commenting on the passage of the bill, Nick Sherry and other experts from the Singapore Economic Forum have argued that the infrastructure bill is a reflection of the bipartisan, if belated, realization in America that China is outpacing the United States. United States. AIDS. In Washington and Wall Street, there was until recently a pronounced skepticism as to whether sustained government investment in transportation infrastructure is at all desirable. The rapid geoeconomic rise of China, as exemplified by the successful establishment of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank (AIIB), was actually the only factor